Today we're going to be talking about Junji Ito's Tales of the Macabre and the 3 episodes that really stood out of the 30 tales that come from it. Good morning, noon or night, whatever it is, wherever you are. Cheers for checking out this video, I appreciate you. I am a Junji Ito fan. I saw some panels of his artwork. I got trapped in a spiral of his strange, eclectic horror artwork. Style and storytelling are both super unique, and it has his signature all over it. But his art captures the imagination. When you turn the page into a large horror panel reveal, it just holds your attention. I still remember turning to this page in Uzumaki, and it just held my focus on what this man had done to himself after being uncontrollably obsessed with a shape, the spiral. An unknown, all-consuming force, incomprehensible to the residents, that has taken over every mental function they have in an almost Lovecraftian way. A cosmic horror, which is class. No knowing why, how, what this force is, where it come from, who it will strike next, what it will do to them. Spiral left everybody in some sort of existential terror, and my personal favourite that I've read to date. When I saw he was having a series released on Netflix called Junji Ito's Tales of the Macabre, I was interested. When it released, I watched the first episode and thought, wow, that wasn't great. There are 30 different stories in Tales of the Macabre. They do range from children-appropriate stories that you may see in like Goosebumps, that highlight the importance of stranger danger when an ice cream man turns children into cannibalistic ice cream children. I know it sounds weird, because it is. To hardcore adult themed stories about suicide in Japanese culture, motor vehicle deaths, collisions, aging, domestic abuse, the list carries on. Some of the episodes are super gory, some of them are really tame, so it's kind of like a mixed bag, which is quite weird when selecting an audience, but it is what it is. If you're thinking of watching it, out of the 30 stories, I think there are 3 of them that really stood out amongst the rest, which I'm going to be talking about in this video. Unfortunately, I feel like the Tomoe episode missed the mark. But yeah, the highlights, in no particular order, come from episode 3, The Hanging Balloons, episode 7, Toontown, and episode 8, Layers of Terror. These are the 3 stories I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about. I'm not going to go into way too much depth with them, because if you do go and watch them, the twists and the air of mystery is what actually makes them really good. So I don't want to spoil that ride for you, otherwise you'll think, oh my god, why did he like this? Weirdo. But yeah, it's the ride and the surprises and twists and turns and the imagery that really make it. So I'll explain it briefly, go check it out. So episode 3, The Hanging Balloons, tackles quite heavy subject matter of hanging. The imagery in The Hanging Balloons, I remember, is one of the first pieces of artwork I saw by Junji Ito, and was the beginning of the morbidly curious rabbit hole for me. I read the Hanging Balloons short manga, and it left an impression on me. The idea behind the story not only looked very creepy, but also gave a very eerie portrayal of suicidal thoughts and patterns. This story follows hallucinations that creep into everyone. The story of large balloon-like creatures that have the faces and the voices of their human victims. At the bottom of the balloon creature, they have a noose attached, which are intended for their human counterpart as they fly away with their human in tow. Then you can imagine what that leads to without me going into way too much detail. The story can be interpreted in a number of different ways, and I think that's the point, and one of the things that makes this episode stand out from the rest, really. But the most popular interpretation, and the one that I think hits it on the nose, when one person follows through with such an act, it creeps into other people's subconscious mind, other people being family, friends, partners, etc. Although they're only thoughts, they still appear. In this story, it's like a domino effect or a virus, a visual representation of when one person thinks of such an act, so does everybody else, sharing a network of upset. The hallucinations come for them. These thoughts come from the initial tight-knit network and then spread outwards, and this is only made worse in the episode by the coverage of media outlets. A very bleak, depressing episode that can be explored a lot further. If you haven't seen it or read the manga, I would advise check it out if you're into that kind of stuff, and that's about as much detail I would go into it without spoiling the story. But the imagery, the story itself, the thoughts behind it are all very interesting. Episode 7, Toontown. Oh, I've not read the manga for this one, but I've watched the story unfold. The message in this one is very clear, and it's represented in quite an interesting way. The story has some great twists and turns. The imagery in it is very eye-catching. What happens to this town's deceased is quite unique. The characters' journeys are interesting to invest into. They all provide a very different role, displaying guilt, panic, deviousness, cowardness, and yeah, they just each provide a different kind of layer of fear as the story unfolds. I'll cover the plot loosely so I don't spoil too much, because again, I recommend you watch these on your own. Toontown follows a car accident where the driver of the car is travelling to a town and hits a teenager. They drive her to the hospital, but she dies in the car. The pair decide not to report it and hide the body away. This town town has a strange layout where there are tombstones in random parts of the town. This gets explained, and we eventually discover this is because when people die in a town, they turn into their own tombstones. When they die on the spot, they are left there, and then they turn into a tombstone. That's why there are tombstones in the middle of the roads, outside of the hospital, in fields. When someone dies, they turn into a tombstone, which is cool imagery. So the story continues, and I'm not going to spoil too much about how all of that unfolds, but the pair eventually dump the body into a well. This haunts the male driver, with him being the main aggressor and coming up with the idea of hiding and not reporting it, and then the message becomes very clear: if you can't run from and hide your past, in the way that the past will come back to haunt you. The driver turns into a monstrosity as a result of his selfish actions. This is all at the bleak cost of the victim's family, who are denied closure. That unfortunately leads to the final image of the episode of the victim's family home being filled with 3 more tombstones. Again, it's just a very interesting episode. It's more to do with the imagery and the themes and how the portrayal of the past comes back to haunt you. It's a tale that we've all heard. You'll live to regret the bad things you do, karma's a bitch, etc, etc. But the way that it's executed in this show is just really well done. The third and final mention is going to be episode 8, Layers of Terror. It was visceral, gory, desperate, creepy, with themes of aging, motherhood, and preservation. So again, not going to go into too much depth. That's to spoil everything from this episode, because I do think you should watch this on your own. This is only one of the half episode ones, so it's a 10-minute story. A mother and her 2 daughters were in a car whilst the eldest was driving. Some nasty words were exchanged, distractions were made, and there was a car accident which hurt the youngest sibling. Instead of causing damage, blood, bleeding, horribleness everywhere, it instead peeled back a layer of her face, which is quite odd. The youngest had been cursed in such a way that she ages like a tree, where another skin layer is developed each year, so now she's made of layers. Instead of bone, muscle, skin, she is layers. I'm going to cut over some story threads, because again, you should watch these on your own. But mum wants her youngest daughter back to being her cute 2-year-old baby daughter. And in a desperate attempt, she starts peeling back layers of her youngest daughter to a 2-year-old, and this reveals a complete horror. In her regret, the mother then believes that she has the same curse and starts peeling off her own layers, but she's not cursed like her daughter, which leads to one of the gorier scenes in the whole show. The mother done all of this to chase earlier days where she had a cuter younger daughter and there was a younger version of herself. However, the repercussions when you go to chase the past so fully are represented quite strongly with the results of this episode. The mothers put them both in a position where they had to be hidden away in a room and looked after by the eldest daughter. I didn't expect such a simple idea to go so far. It was interesting and it kept me engaged because I just did not know what was going to happen next. I think the biggest shock for me was when mum started carving herself up. It was just creepy and weird, but still it drew my eye to it so strongly that I just couldn't look away. I highly recommend watching these for yourself, and that's why I haven't gone into too much detail. Again, I keep reiterating this because I do think you should watch it. These episodes, much like the manga, it's the reveal in the turn of the page, looking at an unknown horror panel that takes your eye and imagination by surprise. And I think these 3 episodes in this series capture this quality very well, so I don't want to spoil them for yourself, especially considering I'm recommending them. There are some other good episodes in this series, but those are the top 3. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you've seen the show, do you agree with me? If you like the video, hit the like button, and if you want more content, because there will be more, please do subscribe. It's much appreciated. Cheers, you legend. Have a good day.